Moving on to the last and the final segment for the day, we have somebody very special with us today. He is somebody who is very renowned, and Nikhil Taneja, the next guest for our segment, is a Mumbai based writer, producer, storyteller, teacher, entrepreneur, and youth mental health advocate. He's currently the co founder and CEO of a youth media organization called YOUVA, which creates socially conscious content to empower young Indians. He also serves on the global advisory board of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation's Community Goalkeepers. With YUVA, Nikhil has traveled across 35 cities and 100 plus colleges across the country to document mental health and identity issues, followed by India's Gen Z, and to create safe spaces for young people to express themselves in person and online. Most of his work has been in and around urgent issues like the youth empowerment, gender equality, sex education, and LGBTQ plus rights, including the Six Pack Band, India's first transgender pop group, which won the Cannes Grand Prix Glass Lion Award. He has previously led creative teams at Yashraj Films, Viacom Digital, MTV India, and Hindustan Times, but has found the most joy as a professor teaching journalism students at Jai Hind College, Mumbai. Welcoming Nikhil on our platform. Hi, Nikhil. Can you just unmute yourself?
Hi, everyone.
Hi,
So,
Nikhil. Audible. Yes.
thank you so much, Rishi, for having me. This is such an exciting conference. I didn't know there's going to be so many young people, and they seem so happy, especially because of the brilliant songs that Shifali sang. And I was just like, it's such a tough act to follow when you have such a renowned singer, and singing such beautiful songs. That I saw how Weber was loving it and enjoying himself. And now I'm just like, man, the pressure on me to impress Weber when everyone else in this session now has suddenly like gone through the roof. But I'll try my best to say something that hopefully you can take back. Really happy to be here, honestly. Really, really happy. Rishi, should I begin?
Yes, yes. Please go ahead, Nikhil. The floor is all yours.
Okay, amazing, amazing. Okay, so I mean, thank you for again, Rishi, for the very kind introduction. There's a lot of things that I've done, but as he said, I think the thing that I enjoy the most has been talking and interacting and listening to young people. I've been a teacher and a professor at a college for about 7 years. Outside of all the stuff that I've done in content, right now I'm leading this company called YOUVA, which is on VR YOUVA on Instagram. I don't know if any of you have seen it or interacted with it. Um, so I consider myself a storyteller primarily. And so I want to just start by telling you a little bit of a story of my life, of the time that I was, I suppose, your age. I was young too once, I swear. It doesn't look like looking at my beard right now. But yeah, when I was about 14, I grew up in this place called Bahrain, which is somewhere in the Middle East. And I used to love writing, and I also used to think I'm really cool. I used to think I have a lot of opinions, so everyone should know my opinions. I still think I'm a little cool, but when I was 14, I used to think I'm like coolest kid ever. Like my first email ID that I had ever made was nikhiliscool@yahoo.com. That's how cool I used to think I was. And so I used to write. So there was this newspaper in Bahrain called Gulf Daily News, which was a local newspaper. And I used to feel, and they used to have these letters to the editor section. I don't know if you ever have attempted at writing your opinions and sending across to a newspaper. I don't even know if you guys have ever seen a physical newspaper right now, given the world has gone completely digital. But yeah, I used to think that maybe I'm smart enough and cool enough to send my opinions to this newspaper, and maybe they'll publish it. So I did that. I used to start writing about whatever I would think that I need to tell the world about. So if there was something that was happening in global relations of India and some other country, and I'd just be like, as a 14-year-old, I want to give my opinion. And I'd write this email. I mean, it was just literally the start of emails, but people would literally write physical letters, and then they started getting published, and I was like, this is amazing. My letters are getting published in the newspaper, and they would write my name as Nikhil Taneja, age 14 years, because because my email ID was actually Nikhil is cool 1986, so they guessed that I'm 14. And then I thought this is going to be the best thing to have happened to me, that everyone's going to know me and everyone's going to love me. Two things happened. Number one, everyone did come to know me. But the second thing, which is that everyone's going to love me, Actually, the exact opposite of that happened. Everyone started hating me. Like, I cannot even, I mean, I used to think that this is going to be the thing that will make me super famous. It did, but it actually made me infamous versus famous. Because I suppose that, when you're 14 or when you're a teenager and you have opinions and you want to tell the world what you want to say, the world may not actually be ready for it, because they're just like, you're young. Who wants to hear what you have to say? You should just keep quiet and not say anything. So, and I started getting bullied a lot. And this is a time where the internet wasn't really, this was in the 2000s, early 2000s. Okay. The internet wasn't really there that much at that point of time. So to hate on me, people have taken all kinds of efforts, physical efforts. Like, not everyone had email at that time. So I kid you not, people used to write letters to the editor against me. Where, imagine the amount of effort they have taken, where they have literally taken a letter pad, wrote a letter, put it in an envelope, gone to the post office, posted that letter. Some mailman has gone and taken that letter, gone to the editor, and posted a letter there. The editors opened the letter, read the letter, decided that this is worth publishing, and all it said was, Nikhil is an idiot. And they'd publish it and say, yeah, of course, this is important. We should post something, someone talking about how a 14-year-old is actually stupid. And it's okay. I was like, it's okay. It's not going to be that bad, except that it continued getting worse. I remember I was in a school assembly once, and my school assembly there was one school called Indian School Bahrain, where all Indians used to go to. So, like, literally all ages of all students of all classrooms would be in the same auditorium and the same school. So in the school assemblies, which we would have, imagine class 1 to class 12th, everyone's there. And there'd be these award sections every once in a while, and I'd win a lot of awards because I told you Nikhil is cool. So, but imagine this, okay? My name is being called, saying, and the award goes to Nikhil Taneja. And I'm at the back because I'm a senior. I'm in like 10th standard, I think, at this point, and I have to go to the front to collect the award. And as I'm walking from the back to the front, the entire school starts booing, boo. And it's obviously segregated. There are boys on the other side and there are girls on the other side. So I'm looking at the boys and they're booing me, and I'm just like, man, this sucks. But then I'm looking at the girls, and if they're not booing me a little bit or booing me a little less, I'm still okay. I'm like, it's fine. The girls are still on my side. We can do this. But it was bad. It was not really. I remember I was playing cricket one time, and I used to be a bowler at that point of time. I think that's the last time I ever played sport. But I remember one day I was bowling, and suddenly, like, a ball came and hit me, and I'm very confused because I'm like, the ball is in my hands. What ball is hitting me? And then I looked back, and it wasn't a ball. It was actually a stone. So someone had thrown a stone on me, which I was just like, man, am I that bad a bowler that someone thrown a stone on me? What is going on? And then that person shouted and screamed saying, Nikhil Taneja, age 14, you suck. So I was like, okay, so this again is because of those letters. And I'm just so confused. I'm like, what have I said or written that people are getting so angry and nasty to me? But at one point, my younger brother got bullied, and he was 11 at that time, 11 or 12 at that time. And that really broke my heart. And I was like, you know what? I can't do this. I need to maybe just go to another school or another college. And I decided, I actually left Bahrain and came to India in my 11th standard to study in this college called Mayo College Ajmer. And I was there in that school in 11th for exactly one day, because even this is after I completely shifted from Bahrain to India. But literally one day later, I decided that, you know what, I think I need to go back. And the reason for that was because this thought came to me. And that thought was that if I don't go back right now, if I actually just shift from where I was and to a new place, just completely running away from what had happened to me, this will be my story. When I look back after growing up, and I'd just be like, man, I was the guy who ran away when he got bullied, and that can't be my story. So I decided that, you know what, I need to go back. So literally one day after joining an entirely new country, entirely new school, in an entirely new place, I decided that I'm going to go back and resume, and I'm going to fight my demons. So but of course I couldn't go back in the same semester. For 6 months I had to homeschool in 11th standard. So paid a lot of money, went back in the second semester of 11th standard. And I was very nervous. I remember the first day, so nervous. going back. I was in the bus and I was like, man, everyone used to hate me earlier and they're going to just hate on me again. And surprisingly, nothing much happened. I was really confused because I was like, wait, have they forgotten what's going on? And I'm going to tell you this. I don't know. I mean, this is a little bit of a stereotype, but I want to tell you. And I realized that maybe it is because I'm in science. So I had taken science in 11th, right? And I realized that everyone who had hated me had gone to commerce. And I'll tell you the reason why. Okay, there's a scientific reason that I understood for this. The scientific reason was that science students hate themselves so much. They don't have the time to hate anybody else. I don't know if you agree with this, but this is what I used to feel and I used to think. And I was like, man, I get it. Everyone's so unhappy in their own lives. They don't have the time to be like, I hate that guy. So I was like, hey, great. I'm a science student. We all hate each other. I mean, we all hate ourselves and it's all good. Everyone's good. No one has the time for anybody else. So I was happy. As a science student, things were going well. And one day, I am in the school bus again, going back, and I just made friends with this new kid in science who I'd never known before. And we were bus buddies. This guy asked me this very simple question. He's just like, so man, I mean, you used to be here in 10th and then we just went away for a little while. So I don't know what happened. How are you? How have you been? Now, I don't know if this happens to you, but like, no, when anybody asks, how are you? They don't typically mean it. You know that, right? Like, how are you is like a social construct. When the question, the answer to how are you is fine. It's never like actually telling somebody how you are, because that would take a lot of time. If somebody, imagine if you said, how are you? And you're like, wait, come sit, I'll tell you how I am. It would take an hour before you are done. Okay, so no one expects the answer to how are you. So when anyone politely asks how are you, you're just like, I'm cool, and they're like, great, and that conversation is over and people can move on in their life. Except that I was waiting for someone to ask me this question. So when this guy said, how are you, Nikhil? I was like, well, we have 1 hour to get home. So let me tell you how I am. So I went back, told him this entire story that, 1 year ago, this is what happened. I started getting bullied. I started writing this, that, blah, blah, blah. And here we are. And this guy just looked at me after the whole conversation and he was just like, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, okay, are you saying sorry because you asked how are you? And I just actually responded to it. And he looked at me and he's just like, because I said, like, you don't have to be sorry, man. It's not that you did something. And then he looked at me and said, actually, I did. And now I'm confused because I'm like, what have you done? And then he looked at me and he said, the letters that used to be written against you in the newspaper. Well, I wrote a lot of them. And I'm shocked at this point because first and foremost, this guy is from science. So I'm just like, wait, you're from science. Gaddar, traitor, how could you do this to me? And then, of course, I realized that's a stereotype. I shouldn't have had that stereotype in the first place. Anybody can be rude. Anybody can be not nice. It has nothing to do with streams. But I was very, very confused because I was like, wait, we've just become friends. You didn't even know me at that time. How could you hate me without knowing me? And then what he said at that time became actually an epiphany and one of the biggest learnings that I've had in my life that has carried me from that day to today. So he looked at me and he said, well, actually, I hated you because I didn't know you. Like, I used to have this opinion of you that you are this rude narcissist, guy who thinks he's very cool, always mentions that, okay, this is Nikhil Taneja, age 14 years old. Why do you need to always say that out loud? Why do you need to specify that? Why do you need to tell the world how cool you are, how young you are, etc., etc.? And I'm like, well, they published my age themselves. I never asked them to do it, And he's like, yeah, man, I just realized now. I've spent a few days traveling with you in the bus and I've realized you're a really nice guy. So I feel really, really horrible. And I'm so sorry that I did all of that. Now, I heard his sorry. And in my head, I'm just like, well, he said sorry, but I got bullied. My brother got bullied. I had to spend a lot of money to leave my school and go to another place. I spent money in homeschooling for 6 months. Was away from my brother, my family, my friends for 6 months before I could come back. And all he says is sorry, and he's expecting me to forgive him. Except that, so I really wanted to, I'll be honest, okay, I'm human, so I really wanted to punch him. But I actually just took a deep breath and I actually said thank you to him. And this is the time that he got confusing. Why are you saying thank you? I don't understand. And I said thank you because he made me realize this one thing, that's just, I mean, it was one of the most important learnings to me. He made me realize that if you know someone's story, you can't actually hate them. When you know someone's story, you can't misunderstand them. When you know someone's story, you can't be angry at them. When you know someone's story, you actually have this beautiful thing that happens called empathy. And that's what had happened. Till he didn't know my story, till he had only read my opinion, he thought he had labels that he had put on me. He thought that I was some sort of a narcissist person who I used to think a lot about himself, a show off. The moment he came to know me and came to know all that I had gone through in the last 1 year, he had empathy for me and he started liking me. And he said, and he didn't have to tell me that it was him, but he came forward to tell me what he had done. And that's the beautiful thing about stories. The most important learning that I've learned in my life is how stories bring us together. Stories, we have divided this entire world into us and them. We feel it's me, my friends, my people, my community, my religion, my country, and everyone else who's not like me. But the moment you listen to the story of someone who's not like you, you actually realize that we're all in this together. There's much more that we have in common with each other than we have that is not similar. There's much more that unites us than that divides us, and all we need to do is listen to each other's story. So on that day, I really thanked that guy because he made me recognize this, that stories can have that kind of an impact. Just 1 hour that he spent in knowing my story, and the time that he had spent in that bus made him apologize to me. And that's what I want to tell you guys today. I think it's very tough being a young person. I know that because I've been there. I've told you my vulnerable story of me getting bullied when I was your age, and I was in my team. And a lot of this happens is because we don't spend enough time just speaking to each other and listening to each other. I feel like we have turned this entire world into labels, where we just judge each other from the first thing we know about them. Labels are given on the simplest thing, from gender to sexuality to the background, to the place you're from, the city you're from, the school you're from, the color of your skin, the body weight you have. Any of these things can become labels. People, of course, have now started dividing the world into religious communities, which again is such a sad thing to see, because people are more than the labels that we give them. There is a story behind every label that we don't know. And if we would just spend a little bit of time in just trying to find these stories, we'll realize that the world is not as bad as we think it is. Behind every label that we have given each other, there is a beautiful story of a beautiful person. And if we start recognizing that and listening to that story, magical things can happen. I'm going to just take another 2 minutes to tell you, why I think labels, and from the context of gender, because I think that's a very important perspective in my life as well. I feel like the most common label that has been given to us in Indian society, as soon as a young person is born, is the gender label, right? Now, of course, you're a generation that has learning that there are no such things. You cannot box people into just two genders. There are many genders that you start recognizing as you grow up, but your parents don't recognize that. And the moment you are born, the society puts you into one of two genders. Either you're a male or you're a female. Now, the moment you're decided that you're a female because you are born with female body parts, the moment that happens, you are given a story by that society. And that story is, for a lot of women, I hope that you're not among them. And I hope that, given that a lot of you are from urban backgrounds, you don't have to face this. But in our country, a lot of women, the moment they're born, the story given to them is that this girl is going to grow up and be someone's wife. She's going to grow up and get married to someone, and that's her entire life story. So whatever she does, the way she talks, the way she laughs, the way she dresses, the things that she eats, the thing that she doesn't eat, it's all judged upon from that angle. If you don't do this in this way, you will not find acha ladka. तुम्हें अच्छा लड़का नहीं मिलेगा, because that's your life's mission, to find a good boy. Oh, you're laughing too loudly, ऐसे अच्छा लड़का कहाँ से मिलेगा? Oh my God, you don't know how to cook, ऐसे अच्छा लड़का कहाँ से मिलेगा? If you go out too late in the night, if you have too many boys who are friends, ऐसे अच्छा लड़का कहाँ से मिलेगा? And all of this is just a problem that we have when we don't understand young people and gender. Now, of course, fortunately, feminism has happened, and we started recognizing that thankfully we should be giving more freedom to young people, whether male or female. And we started recognizing the problems that we have had when it comes to girls and women in this country. At least started having that conversation. On the other hand, I feel, unfortunately, we've never had this conversation about boys in our country, because patriarchy doesn't just affect women; it also affects men, where girls are told that you're going to grow up to be the gatherer in the family, or you're growing up to be taking care of the household. Boys are told you're going to grow up and earn money for the house. They're told that you have to do a job and a career that gets you enough money that you're able to take care of your family. So if a boy says that I don't want to do arts, or I don't want to do engineering, I don't want to do medical, I don't want to do law, they say no, you have to. Why? Because you have to earn. Why do you have to earn? Because you have to take care of your family. Except that women don't need men to take care of their families, except society doesn't let men believe that. So boys are taught to be men, but not taught to be human. And girls are taught to be like, I mean, if you've seen any Bollywood film, you will see the stereotypes we have. The man is the guy who beats people up. He's the guy who's strong, and who's saving the world, saving the day, saving the girl. What does the girl do? The girl just dances. The girl waits to be saved by the hero. And that is our society at large. Bollywood reflects what our society has been. And it's so sad that these are the labels that we have given to ourselves in our society. And and the problem with these labels is that after a point of time, we start believing in these labels. We start thinking that the stories that society gives genders are the stories that we should also have. And what I want to request you guys is, as young people of this new generation, the Gen Z, which I find a really inspiring generation, you've had the access and privilege of the internet. You have had more understanding of the world at your age than your parents ever did. Perhaps not even at 14, 15, 16, but maybe till 30, they never had the kind of exposure you did. You've had that exposure really early. You have so much understanding of the world. Don't buy the stories the society gives you. Don't agree to the labels that society gives you. Write your own stories. Find out who you are. Tell the world that I'm not the label that you want to box me in. I am more than that. I'm a story you don't know. And once you find your story, live that story. Show the world that you have the. I'm telling you, in the world today where everyone follows everything that has been told, we're not a country and a world that questions things. We just follow. Be Find your own story, break this pattern, and lead the way. In this world, one of the most courageous things you can do, and I'm being very serious about this, a true act of courage in today's time when everyone is following everyone else, it is to find and write your own story. It is really the most courageous thing to do, is to find out who you are. Don't have to do what society tells you. Some point in time, I'm going to hear so many of the stories of the 174 people over here, and I'm going to find out that each one of you has made an own difference in your own unique. Have it in you to make that difference. Don't let anybody else tell you otherwise. In our society, it's just that we tell young people that your voice doesn't matter, that the only voices are people, or of those people who actually have achieved something. And that's just wrong. There is no such thing. Everybody's stories matter. Every single person's stories matter. And if nobody is telling you, you tell that to each other. You tell that to yourself. And if you believe in it, the others will believe in it too. So be that change that you want to see in sure. You're such additional time. And I'm really thank you so much for having me. I know I wanted to keep this short so that there can be some questions if you have any. But I'm really happy to be here, and I really hope. And I just want to thank you for making me a part of your story in these few minutes. And I think you have also become a part of mine, even if it was for such a short time. Hope to get to hear from you a lot more as we go along. I hope this was of some help. Open for questions if anyone has any.
Thank you so much, Nikhil, for that wonderful story about your life. It was rather interesting to hear and get perspective about how little things are so very important. Just understanding somebody else's story can take us a long way. So there are a couple of questions. If delegates can just raise their hands, I will recognize them one at a time. Uh, there is a question by Kritika. I will just, Kritika, can you just unmute yourself? Yes, Kritika.
Hi, sir. How are you? Hello. Can you hear
Sorry,
me?
sorry. Yes, yes, I can. I'm sorry, I was just muted. Hi, Kritika. So
Yeah.
nice to meet you.
Yes, sir. Sir, my question is that these things are obviously very important these days, and I think every youngster understand the importance that it's not all about gender equality and stuff. But what steps as we youngsters should do to pass on this thing to our parents and someone who's elder? So basically, we cannot say directly that this thing to our parents or someone who's older to us, because then they think that maybe we are answering them back or we're disrespecting them. So like, how should I personally at my personal level tell anyone older than me that no, this is wrong, this should be the thing?
Thank you, Kritika. I think that's a wonderful question, and thank you so much for asking this. It's something that I get asked a lot, and it's something that I've also struggled with in my life. I found that I think one of the most radical things to do in this world is this concept of listening. Okay, in our society, everyone has something to say, but there's very few people who listen. And even when we talk to each other right now, we always typically talk only to respond. We are never listening anybody else to actually listen to somebody. We are waiting that somebody finishes talking so that we can say something in return, so that we can be, our opinion can be heard. And I feel that obviously parents have also grown up thinking in this way of conversation, where conversation is more a competition than a conversation. That before you can finish, I will say what I have to say. Before I can finish, you will say what I have to say, and nobody gets heard. I would say that I know it's very, very tough, but as a generation, the onus of empathy has to be on you, because you have more awareness of the world, because you have more awareness of these issues. Think about it. You are a teenager and you have such an understanding of this world, that your parents, because they never had that kind of access, probably at 30, 40, they never would have had this awareness. So place of empathy for them, understanding that it has taken their whole lives for them, where they were told one thing and one thing only, that as a man, this is what you're supposed to do. And as a woman, this is what you're supposed to do. And they followed that. And suddenly their young teenage daughter is saying, no, that's not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to do something else. Why would they listen to you? So maybe, try this out, because I've tried this and it's really helped me, is to remind have a conversation with your parents where you lead with listening. Talk to them and actually ask them, when you were young and as a boy, did you, and ask your dad as a boy, did you face pressures of being a man? Did you ever face problems where you felt like, why I do have to do this thing, but you didn't want to do a thing, but your parents told you, or society told you that you have to? Ask your mother, did you want to do something when you were younger that you're not allowed to do, because they told you that a woman is only supposed to do this one thing? Ask them about their stories. Ask them about how it was for them when they were young. Perhaps they will start then and telling you, once they start telling you their stories, telling what they went through, maybe they'll start understanding you as well. Because they will then connect with you on the level of when they were younger versus right now when they're much older to you. And they think that because they're older, and of course they have the benefit of experience, but they feel that their experience outranks your maturity and your understanding of the world, which is actually not true, because I think that you all have a lot of understanding of the world at your age that I suppose we did not have, at a much later age. So try this. Maybe, it won't be one conversation. I know that it'll be many sessions, but in every one of them, try and listen to them a little bit, ask them questions about their youth, and I'm sure that you will find a point of connection, after which when you tell your story, they will be able to empathize with you as well. I hope that helps.
Thank you so much, Nikhil, for that beautiful answer. If you don't mind, we'll take one last question.
Happy to take, more questions as well. No problem.
So we there's a delegate representing Colombia in IOC. Delegate,
Wow.
can you unmute and start talking?
Thank you, sir, for the recognition. Sir,
Hi, what's
I
your
am
name?
Ratan Kirti. My name is Sir Ratan Kirti.
Hi, Ratan Kirti. Hi.
Sir, my question to you is, sir, how do you deal with your failures? Because, sir, when it leads to a failure, it leads that our parents compare our marks and our grades with other students, and with comparison comes depression, and depression comes such activities like suicide and self-hurting ourselves. Sir, how do you control your failures and make them into your successful milestones? Sir, that's my question, and I think this is a question for all of and everybody would like to answer. Would like to ask this question to you, sir. Can you
It's
please
a
elaborate?
it's a very, very good question. Very again, I mean, I'm so impressed by the depth of questions that you all are asking. And a lot of us I have faced, this question in my life growing up several times, and I've not been very good in dealing with this word called failure. Except that, I feel that there is such a negative connotation, associated with this idea of failure, which we need to remove. Because actually, failure as a word, failure is the most common thing that every human being goes through. It is no person is ever able to grow in their lives if they don't fail. This idea of success is a trap. I have always felt success is a trap, and so the idea of success is in many ways just made to be far bigger than it is. Because think about it, success comes actually in context. Because when you think about, when somebody says you have to be successful, see, they're telling you to be more successful, but you are more successful than your friends. Then your parents will say, why don't you go to that other school? If you are more successful than the other school, they'll be like, why don't you be more successful than all the schools in the city, then all the colleges in the city, then if all countries in the world. And then even when you are that, they'll be like, oh, but you're not like Mark Zuckerberg, who has started a company at that age. And then you'll be that, they'll be like, oh, but you're not like Albert Einstein. There's always going to be a context. You will never be able to be that. Success cannot be a goal. Success is always, there's always going to be somebody more successful for yourself to be compared to. On the other hand, I think failure is such a great friend, because in failure you learn so much about yourself. You learn and understand what are the things that you can do to move forward, because we have so little that we know about ourselves. And it's failure that genuinely teaches us far more than success ever can. I have had many failures in my life, and in every one of those failures, of course, it's not been easy to kind of deal with it. But every single time I've taken a step back, I've tried to understand and learn from them. Wait, why did I fail? What did I do wrong over here? What can I do to make myself better than I already am? And then the moment I overcome that, the high that you get, that is actually success, overcoming that failure. And I think there is no other concept that you should think of as success, in my opinion. To stop, in our country, we always teach everyone the idea of success, but we don't teach people the idea of failure, which is actually the most common thing in this entire world. So stop putting a negative connotation on failure. I think we need to relook this word failure as something. Think of it as an analogy for growth, instead of thinking of it as an analogy of you not being competent, not being skillful, not being good enough. Think of it as growth, that every time you fail, you're actually learning something new about yourself that you never knew before. And look at it that way, you're always going to overcome. But don't fall into that trap. Success is a trap. There is no such thing as success. I can promise you that. No matter how successful you think you are, there's always going to be someone you're going to be compared to and saying, "Arey, but why are you not as good as that person?" So there is no such thing. It's if your contentment, I think, is successful. If you're happy doing what you're doing, I think that is the sign of true success. I hope that makes sense. I hope I've answered your question.
Thank you so much, Nikhil, once again for that wonderful answer. And with this, thank you so much for joining us today and being such a wonderful speaker and sharing so many interesting thoughts, which I'm sure will help all of us here present today. Thank you once again for being a part of the ceremony.
No, thank you so much, Rishi, for having me. Thank you, everyone. I'd love to hear any more questions you have. Would love to answer them. I'm a Taneja Memo on Instagram. Please reach out. As many people as possible. Thank you so much. but still being part of something like this, being part of a community. And I think I'd just say that as closing words, learn from each other. There is so many of you in this place. There are so many incredible people with incredible stories. If you can spend time to just get to know each, at least 2, 3, 5 other people and get to know them well, ask them how are you, listen to them a little bit, and I'm telling you, you'll learn so much about life from each other that probably your teachers, your parents will not be able to teach you because of the experiences that you have at the same age. So value each other, and if you do that, I'm telling you, you'd be so much richer than anybody else, because I think true value comes from learning and listening to each other. But thank you so much for having me. It was such a pleasure and such a joy being with you all. Hope to speak to you all sometime soon again, and wish you all the very best.
Thank you so much, Nikhil, for joining us today. Thank you. Have a
Can I
great.
just share my ID over here?
Yes, you can just type it in the chat. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Perfect. Thank you, Nikhil, for
I'm
joining.
also going to take a. I'm taking a little screenshot from everyone who's present
Yes, yes.
for my memories.
Sure.
Bye bye.
Thank you so much, Nikhil.